Hey, everybody. Welcome back to A Shot of Business Central and a Beer. In our feature segment today, we're going to be talking through how to best prepare for your audit when running Business Central. So, Michael, have you ever been through an audit?
I have not.
So,
I'm lucky.
at this time of year around Halloween, it is a spooky and scary thing for some people,
I could imagine.
right? So, I think at the summit conference that I just attended, I actually did a session on this that was very close to in line with this topic of how to prepare, basically on data integrity, data security, and audit tools in Business Central to help simplify your audit. So kind of been preparing for this, for a while. I'm also going to be writing a blog article on this that we're going to publish just as a reference document for the various setups, administration tools, and reports that you can use to help make sure your audit's going smooth, and some recommendations for setting up the system, like what are things that you should be doing up front and then on a regular basis throughout the year. And tell you what I originally started with was knowing that it's fall, right? And it's getting towards the end of the year. And audits, most companies are on like calendar fiscal years. So usually if you're going through an audit, you have some pre-audit tasks that start in November and December. And then once you get to maybe like late January, February, you get a laundry list of requests from your outside auditors, usually mostly for accounting and finance related areas, financial statement, right? Because you're auditing the financial statements officially. So usually this falls on like your CFO, controller, assistant controller, and accounting team in there. So when I started preparing for this, I was like, all right, let me just go through a list of all of the reports that you should run in Business Central and provide to the auditors. Like, okay, pretty straightforward.
Simple enough, right?
And then what I realize is, wait a minute, if the system isn't set up to begin with, or if you haven't, quote, locked down the system from a security and maintenance standpoint, those reports might be garbage, right? So in order to be able to look at those reports and rely on those reports, you have to first make sure that the system is set up correctly and that you've got good data integrity meaning making sure that you're confident that things are hitting the right place at the right time on your financial statements.
So first step then is to make sure that your ERP or whatever Business Central is set up correctly.
Correct.
Okay.
So let's talk through real quickly. I know, again, if you attended Community Summit and you have access to the sessions, this wasn't a recorded session, but there are notes out there from this. But I'm going to kind of walk through. So what are some of those setup things kind of quickly that we can go through? So the first thing is your user setup, right? So you want to make sure that one of the questions the auditor is going to say is, how are you controlling who has access to your ERP solution, to your systems, right? And of course, everything we're talking about here today is Business Central, right? I'm sure there are other things, but today we're focusing on Business Central, right? So
Can I interject?
Yeah.
Have you gone through an audit before?
I have,
so.
yes.
So would you say that auditors generally have a standardized set of questions that they ask to each organization that they're auditing?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wondering.
Yeah, generally, right. They're looking at controls on your data and your processes. And then they want to audit the accuracy of the financial statements. Meaning, does this tie out? Does it all make sense? Are these transactions all legitimate?
Okay.
Right.
So auditors do have a rhyme and reason.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it starts with making sure you're controlling access to the system.
Right.
And how are you doing that? So the first thing is, right, when you have a new user, right, you set up a new user record, you assign a license to that user, right? And what sometimes people forget to do is if someone leaves the organization, you should remove that license and you should disable that user account, right? So that's having a process in place to show how you enable and disable user accounts is a key part of that, including detailed setup instructions for like, if maybe it's not just, okay, I set up the user, but now that I set them up, how do I set up their permissions? How do I define what role center they're assigned or what their view of Business Central is, right, when they log in? So again, it's user setup, it's permission sets. And I pointed out, I'd like to point out, like a lot of times there's a great page, an auditor goes, hey, you've got this user, Ken. Show me, what does Ken have access to in Business Central? And you might go, well, here's Ken's user setup record, and here are the permission sets that Ken is assigned to. Well, that kind of doesn't tell you really what I have access to. So in Business Central, there's a page called Effective Permissions. You put in the username, and it basically calculates based on the permission sets that you've assigned all of the detailed data, pages, reports, or other objects that user has access to.
Gotcha.
Based on those roles and permission sets, I should say.
And would you say that in general, I know there's some companies that do a wonderful job with everything, but in general, are there a lot of companies that should spend more time setting up the permissions for their users?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
With a laugh. Okay.
Absolutely. Security and permission sets, role center setup and configuration. These are areas that are, they can get very tedious, like granular, and you really have to spend time fine tuning what each user has access to. So a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll kind of take a shortcut. And here's I'm going to give away a little shortcut for those people that feel like, so there's probably people out there that are like, oh, our security is wide open right now.
Yeah.
Everyone has access to everything, and we know it's terrible, but we don't have time, and it's a pain in the butt. So Ken, how can we quickly implement some type of permission set security here?
Okay.
Well, there is a tool that allows you, when you're setting up a permission set, most permission sets explicitly define what permissions are included for you as a user. So I could say, Michael, I want you to have access to the trial balance report. I want you to have access to the aged accounts payable report. I want you to have access to the vendor setup page and so on. But what you can also do, this is the secret, you can create a permission set where all of those objects, those things I listed, you can say, these are the things that I want to exclude from this user. So you could say, Michael has access to most things in Business Central. However, these are the 10 or 20 or 50 pages and reports that Michael does not have access to. I'm excluding access to these 50 things. And a lot of times, because in a small, mid-sized business, people have their hands in all different kinds of places. That's a way easier way to go.
So you're saying assign that permission then to multiple people because most likely,
right,
most people or a lot of people are not going to have access to the same page or shouldn't have access to a lot of the same.
I can provide full access, or what we call super access, to like you as a user. And then if I also assign this exclude permission set, I can put 50 or 10 or 100 different things in there. And those things you do not see or have access to.
Gotcha.
And a lot of times that's a way easier way to do it. But now you actually have a legit security plan in place. Right.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Good. So that's kind of users, that's kind of on the user setup, user control side. The second piece are financial setups. So setting up your financial modules so that you can maximize your auditability, control, data integrity, and reconciliation capabilities, right? So how do we do that? The first thing is there's a lot of different topics that I can go through here. I'll go through here. One is, right, use dimensions. Dimensions are a way to segment your chart of accounts. And the general rule is I would say that your GL chart of accounts list should be pretty static. It shouldn't change. You shouldn't be adding new GL accounts on a regular basis.
Really?
If you are, it means that you're not using dimensions, right? Every time you add a new product line, if you have to add new GL accounts, or if I add a new salesperson, I have to add some new GL accounts. That's wrong. You shouldn't have to do that. And you're like, well, who cares? Why would the auditor care? Well, because if every time the auditor shows up, you have 10 or 20 new GL accounts, now they kind of have to ask questions around that. If I give them the same exact chart of accounts this year as I gave them last year, but I have a couple new dimension values, it's a lot smoother, right? So that's something. There's other dimension tools that you can use to make sure that people are hitting the right ones. There's a dimensions combinations, which says which dimension can be used in combination with another dimension. There's default rules. So you can say, hey, anytime anyone hits this expense account, they have to specify a department dimension value.
Gotcha.
Right. There's also allowable values. This is a newer feature where you can say, hey, like I have an account called office supplies expense, right? And then I have a department dimension. My departments are sales, marketing, admin, shop floor, warehouse.
Sure.
Maybe no one should ever be buying office supplies for the shop floor.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense, right? There's no office on the shop floor. So they shouldn't, right? I can say, don't allow people to pick shop floor when they hit office expense. Biggest thing, there's a direct posting flag. So in Business Central, you have posting groups, right? Do not allow direct posting to any account that's used in a posting group. What that does is that ensures that you understand exactly what is hitting that GL account. And it's used for only one purpose. So when the auditors come in and they say, hey, this sales account here, what's hitting this? You can go, well, we don't allow direct posting. So I can tell you the only thing that hits that is when we invoice customers to this account or whatever, right?
So what you're saying is, right, the more finite you can be with your user permissions and setup and whatnot, the better, right? I mean, you just don't want to.
Correct.
Okay, I understand. I would venture to think that a lot of smaller companies lack in this field, like we talked about.
Exactly.
But they just kind of assign basic permission to everybody, and
right.
And that's
yeah, and it's not a factor or a function of someone who's trying to do something nefarious.
Yeah.
Big word. It's errors.
Right.
It's preventing users from accidentally choosing the wrong thing. I kind of have a rule, like if you have any more than 3 choices for a user, your error rate goes up exponentially for each one that you add, each choice that you give them, right? So you want to try to make sure that users aren't accidentally hitting the wrong thing.
Which is why I can only access 3 pages in our Business Central.
There you go. We locked you down. I think we may have even disabled personalization for you.
Maybe.
You don't want you causing any trouble.
Yeah,
out there.
Get in there and mess around.
Yeah. And there's some other rules for posting groups, and we tell people don't reuse the same GL account for multiple purposes inside of posting groups. A good example is, you have a cost of goods sold account and an inventory adjustments account. You would never want to use the same GL account for both of those. Because when the auditor says, hey, what's hitting this account? You don't want to say, well, it could be because we sold something to a customer, or it could be because we lost the item or we damaged it in the warehouse. They're like, what?
Yeah.
Like a write-off? So that, again, it raises questions. If you can give them one specific purpose per account, it makes everything cleaner and easier for everyone to understand.
These GL account best practices that you're kind of speaking of,
Mhm.
is this something that's just learned through experience, or is it something that accountants and finance people should pretty much know? Or
No, I would say, as a matter of fact, it's something that I like. I have an accounting degree, CPA background, so I understand, right, an auditor's mindset and what they're looking for and what they like to see. They want clear transparency and simplicity. And so these are things that I've picked up over the years. I think we published I think a blog article a few years ago, best practices and financial setups.
Yeah,
A lot of these are in there.
10 Commandments of financial setups.
The 10 Commandments of financial setups. There you go. Right. Yeah. Say
Yeah.
sign of the cross real quick here.
Hey, you got my holy water.
So, yeah, no, so these are things that we've picked up over the years, and and again, it's relevant for audits because the auditors are coming in, right? They don't have an intricate understanding of your system and how transactions flow and everything. But if you can make it simple for them, that's what you're trying to do. Make it simple for them to be able to understand what's happening. And if you limit everything, restrict it and limit to a single use, you end up in a lot better situation. All right, let's move on. We can talk all day about this. The fourth thing is, what are tools available for your Business Central administrator? So like when the auditor comes in and says, like, how are you controlling what users see or what they can do? All right. So as whoever this is usually sometimes an IT manager, could be someone in the accounting department. They're like the de facto system administrator for Business Central. Right. There's a few features on the Role Center page where you can enable or disable and decide which role centers you want to make available for users when you set up. And my recommendation is if your organization is only using 3 different role centers or 5 different role centers, but there's 25, right, in Business Central available, disable the 20. So that users can't accidentally pick them or switch to them, right? Don't even let them see that they're there. Just make them pick from those 3 or 5 that you're using.
And it's best practice or common that people use, multiple people use the same role center. That's pretty fairly common.
Most small to mid-sized businesses of our customers, we see I don't know what the average number is exactly, but I would tell you that most organizations use somewhere between 3 and 8 different role centers. That covers their user community, right? It could be more, but on average, it's probably 4 or 5.
Okay, so it's not a negative thing though if multiple people are using the same role center.
Oh no, that's common, right? Like there's a salesperson role center. I would expect if you have 5 salespeople, all 5 salespeople use that role center.
Better for an auditor to set up an individual with their own individual role center.
No, okay. Not necessary. No, not at all. No. Okay, another tool. This is a really popular tool. A tool that's been around for a long time called the change log. Right? The change log, you can enable this on any table in any field. And you say, I want to know anytime a user changes a field value, they modify it, they insert a new value, or they delete it, and track who made the change, what day and what time, what was the old value and what was the new value. So my suggestion from an audit perspective is to set this up on all of your GL account records, dimension records, and posting group records. So that you know, has anyone changed
Right.
anything in our financial setups and controls over the last year?
Some sort of trail.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yep. And it's an easy way to go, oh, yeah, you know what? In June, we added a new location. So we added a new inventory posting setup record. And it's just something that you can look back on. There's a new feature called field monitoring. Field monitoring effectively kind of sits on top of changelog. And the new features that it adds are notifications via email to your system administrator when someone has changed a field value, the ability to categorize the types of data changes being made, retention policies, which is huge. So like, let's say you're tracking hundreds of fields across different tables, right? That table can grow huge. So with retention policies, you can say, look, any changes to the GL chart of accounts, only keep those records for 1 year. Any changes to sales lines records, keep for 3 months.
Gotcha.
So table by table, you can pick how long you want the system. And then what it does is it auto purges those old records for you.
Really?
So your database doesn't grow
Wow.
out of control.
Very nice.
Right? There's also a feature called time registers, which will track how many minutes per day has each user logged into the system. So sometimes auditors will say, when was the last time so-and-so accessed the system? If you set this up, you can go in there and say, here's the last date they accessed it, and here's how long. Right. And then there's the admin center. And the admin center adds tools, like I mentioned, like notifications, telemetry data, storage capacity status. You can get access to the tables, how many records are in each table, and all kinds of stuff. Right. And then lastly, but not leastly, number 4, fourth section here.
Number 4?
Reports and tools.
Oh, what everybody thinks is number 1.
Right. But it took 1, 2, and 3, right? User setup, financial controls, administrative tools. It took us making sure that we had our ducks in a row to get to this point, to make sure that we can run these reports. Right. So real quickly, just I'm going to try to go through like the key reports that are accessible that you should be using for various purposes. First of all, let's start off with the trial balance report. Auditors are definitely going to ask you for a trial balance report. They want to see the beginning balances of every account, net change for the period, and ending balances.
Okay.
There are about a dozen standard trial balance reports in the system. Out of the box, including one that you can output directly to Excel. Actually, all of them you can output to Excel. But I want to mention that how I do it is I create a trial balance financial report, which used to be called account schedules. And I create a row definition that includes every GL account, every posting GL account. And then the columns I can set up however I want. I can say, I want a column for beginning balance, column for debits, a column for credits, and an ending balance column. And then I take that view, I can set whatever date filter, export it to Excel.
How did it work with like old NAV when you couldn't export to Excel, right? You couldn't, what did?
I did account schedules.
Nice.
That was my workaround. You use the overview tool, look at the data, copy the rows and paste them into Excel.
Oh, copy and paste, go copy and paste.
Yeah, because here's the secret. No, even though you have hundreds of standard reports in Business Central, there's always something that's not quite formatted right. I don't want to see it this way. I don't want to see it sorted this way. I don't want to see it grouped like this.
Sure.
I don't want to see these columns, or I would prefer to see this column instead. So I would create a trial balance financial report that you can run. You can get exactly what you want in terms of rows and columns. Bank reconciliation is a huge part of your audit. So there's 2 steps for bank recs. Step 1, complete your bank rec in Business Central. Many people still will use Excel or do their
Really?
bank recs offline. Bad idea. It just, I mean, it works, but if your auditor shows up and you can print the bank statement report
Yeah.
showing outstanding entries that haven't been cleared yet as of the end of that bank rec and just hand it to them or email it to them,
A lot less stress on your plate.
a lot less stress on your plate, a lot less questions from them.
Yeah.
Because they see, and this applies to all these reports, they see that this is a system generated report directly out of the system. It's not an Excel spreadsheet.
Everything can kind of, the numbers can be fudged.
You can do whatever the hell you want in Excel, right?
Gotcha.
So like if I give someone an Excel spreadsheet and go, oh yeah, here's our financial statement.
Is it?
Right. But if I give you a report that's directly out of Business Central, that's clearly not
Yeah.
fudged,
Less of a chance.
it's significantly more trustworthy.
Right.
And therefore less follow-up questions back at you. Okay. Aged accounts payable report, tie out AP. Aged accounts receivable report, tie out AR. All right, let's talk inventory valuation.
Okay.
Everyone wants to start with the inventory valuation report. That is what I would call good. Because what it gives you is every item and the total remaining quantity as of your period ending date and the total value, right? But that total value could be partly expected costs and partly invoiced costs. So it doesn't help you break apart your interim inventory accounts from your inventory accounts.
Okay.
And a lot of auditors are going to want you to justify what makes up this interim inventory balance versus the inventory balance.
Okay.
So a better report to run is the inventory to GL reconcile report. This report actually breaks apart invoiced value from expected value. And then you add those together and you get your total inventory valuation.
So one's good, one's great.
One's good and one's better.
So is there a best coming?
Man, you're on the ball today.
I'm sharp as a kid.
There is. Yeah. We actually published an app on AppSource. It's called the Advanced Inventory to GL Reconcile Report. This is the best. Now, what we've done is it's the same data set as exists on the inventory to GL Reconcile Report. What we've done is we've removed some columns that really shouldn't make sense or shouldn't be relevant for you when you're doing this. We've also rearranged the columns. So they're detailed listed in a better order that makes more sense, like intuitively. We've relabeled a couple columns. We've color coded the columns to make it much easier to understand. And we've also split out the expected cost. We've split out return orders and WIP. So that makes it much easier to reconcile against your individual GL accounts that you have on your chart of accounts.
How much does this app cost?
It's free, Michael. You do have to go through and register it, and it's $0 per user.
Nice.
So
Magic words free.
Right? And I would tell you that, you know, that the standard report's still there, that you may have a reason why you want to run that because you want to see, do we have any unposted costs? We removed all these unposted cost columns, unadjusted or whatever. Our assumption when you're doing your final inventory reconciliation is you've posted all your costs to the GL and all costs are fully adjusted. So we're like, on this report, we don't need to show all that, right? We don't need it there. So it's a cleaner, easier to understand report. So I would use that. There is a production order WIP report. If you're doing manufacturing, you should run that report. That should tie out to your WIP account, penny to penny. I've not seen many issues with that.
Would you say that every report that you most likely need if you're getting audited is standard out of the box already in Business Central? You don't have to create.
So far, we've not touched on one required custom report.
Okay.
financial reports, right? Again, these used to be called account schedules. A lot of people are not overly flattered with the visual display when you print an income statement or a balance sheet.
Sure.
But I will tell you, you have to have financial reports set up. You have to have an income statement, a detailed balance sheet, because there's the overview page. You can switch between periods really easily. You can drill down on the cells and see what specific detailed transactions make up that net change or that balance. You have to use it, even if you don't use it for your like executive level financial reporting tool. From a day-to-day standpoint, an auditing, a month-end standpoint, you need to be using financial reports. It's just all it is it's a set of different row definitions which combine GL accounts and dimension values and columns, month to date, year to date, prior year to date, net change, year over change, year over year change percent. Like everything you want is right there. There's a fixed, if you use fixed assets, you should run the fixed asset book value 01 report. Nice name, right? I think there's a fixed asset book value 02 report also.
Really?
But the 01 report shows you the original asset acquisition cost, depreciation, and then an ending book value that should tie out to your GL. So that's a nice report. If you're running projects, there is a project WIP to GL report. And again, that report ties out that has a total WIP. If you have a project WIP account, it should total.
Very nice.
Another report that auditors like to see, and this one kind of gets sticky sometimes, there's a report called the daily invoicing report.
Okay.
A lot of times auditors will say, send me a report or a list of every invoice posted during the year or during a month. This is an easy way to provide that. And then, because what they're going to do is they're going to say, all right, you sent me this invoicing register, if you will, invoice register for the month, and it shows $2 million in sales. But I look at your income statement and it says 2.1 million in sales. Why is there a difference? What's the $100,000 difference there? Well, if you've set up your posting groups correctly, you should be able to easily identify which accounts the 2 million maps to, and then easily see, well, this extra $100,000, this was from vendor rebates or something, right?
Not the brand new BMW sitting out in the parking lot.
Right, exactly, right. So, yeah, that daily invoicing report. Now, again, all these reports have a print to Excel data only option.
Right.
Right. So even if you don't like the formats of these reports, send the output into Excel. There also, I just like to remind people, there's a general ledger entries page. You can set all kinds of filters on this general ledger entries page and give your auditor all your GL entries. Right?
Be done with it, right?
Show full transparency. Yeah. Be like, look, here's every journal entry that got hit, every entry that got booked to our GL during the month, or whatever period of time they asked for, right? Send it and just share, open in Excel, save it, send it to them, right?
Easy peasy, right?
Hopefully it could be that easy. And then here is the ace in your back pocket.
Uh-oh.
You're like, I need to get them this data, and I don't see any report that gets me the data or the view that I need. There is a page called Web Services. In the Web Services page, there's a function called Create Data Set. If you create data set, you can pick any page in the system which has data, right, fields displayed, and create an OData URL, OData feed, and then go into Power BI or even Excel, connect to that data feed and pull in all that data into Excel and use pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, whatever you need to pull multiple tables in and build the data that you need for the audit.
So with Business Central, there's never the excuse, well, I can't get the information, right? There's always a way.
Correct. Very well put. And this has changed. 15, 20 years ago, we often heard from customers, I feel like the system has all my data in there, but I can't get it, right? I would tell you it is the extreme opposite today. You have no excuse.
Right, to get your data. Yeah.
Your data is accessible through multiple options.
Right.
So there's really no reason you can't get that, whatever level of data you want to get.
It's an auditor's dream.
Right. So to wrap this up, right, accuracy and controls over your various setups throughout Business Central are crucial for being able to demonstrate to your auditors the integrity of your system. Tools and reports exist in Business Central to provide almost every piece of data that you might need to provide to auditors, and showing it's coming directly from Business Central is very powerful in itself. My final recommendation is, if you're going through your audit with Business Central for the first time, create a BC audit checklist. And this could be in Excel, just a list of every report that you ran for the auditors, what filters you set, how you ran it, and then save a copy of all those for next year, so that when you get to next year, you're not reinventing the wheel.
If you have to be audited.
You will every year, you're going to be audited, right? Most people. You're just repeating the same steps that you did last year.
Yeah.
So the first year is usually the hardest. The second year, if you've created a good checklist for yourself, next year it's just rinse and repeat.
No, makes a lot of sense. Mic drop, right? Boom. There you have it.
And that's all I have to say about that.
And that's how you handle an audit with Business Central. So not as scary as a lot of people make it out to be, as long as you prepare.
Yeah.
Right. As long as you're prepared, you're fine during an audit.
Yeah, that's the key. And understanding where stuff is coming from and the tools that exist to understand and demonstrate to the auditor, here's this control. Here's why. Oh, why? How do you know that no entry's gotten posted to this cost of goods sold account?
Right.
Because right here, we have direct posting turned off, and here's my change log, which shows no changes to that GL account for the last 12 months.
That makes sense.
Right? There you go.
If you need a consultant for auditing, contact you where? No.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and we do. That is one of the things that I do find myself doing for our customers periodically, is I am participating in their audit. Right. It's and all what I'm really doing is just pointing out these controls and processes and reports that they and helping understand, like, this is the report you should be running. Right. You shouldn't be running that report, or you shouldn't be doing it this way. And here's why.
Yeah. No, makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, it's hard to pretty much top that topic. I'm pretty sure it's going to be popular, especially for the people who go through audits every year. But we got one last topic coming up: shot or no shot.
Shot or no shot.
Yeah, we're gonna try it.